these are not heavy lifts. I'm not asking you to, like, sell one of your kids. I'm saying, can you go and
Yeah, I'm only asking how you can be Amazon. That's not heavy lifting at all.
just
Hey everyone, welcome to Nicole Reacts, where I, Nicole, react to online marketing gurus that I find on the internet. My qualifications for snarky and commentary are that I've owned a marketing company for 15 years. In January of 2023, it will be 15 years since I've had this company. And in that time, I've worked with a variety of clients on marketing strategies, search engine optimization, WordPress development, email marketing, and so think about internet marketing in a broad sense. And I have worked in that broad sense with a lot of different businesses and nonprofits in that time, which has given me a fair bit of experience and content knowledge about marketing. So today's person is Chris Brogan. Now, it was so funny because, when you forget someone exists. So let me back up. So back in 2010 or 2011, there used to be this really regular conference in Portland, Maine. It used to be called Social Media FTW. I spoke at it at one point. Maybe I'll put a picture of baby Nicole speaking on the screen. Social Media FTW changed into Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference. It was mainly aimed at small business owners and nonprofits in Maine, and it was just kind of a general, like, what's going on in marketing, in-person type conference. And so I went, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I don't know if it's still even going on, but it was put on by Rich Brooks, who's with Flight New Media, which is a digital marketing company in Portland, Maine. And Chris Brogan, I think it was in 2010 or 2011, was the keynote speaker. And after his keynote speech, I kind of had two thoughts about him. Number one, wow, this guy has a lot of really general ideas about marketing that don't seem that revolutionary, and yet everyone around me is taking notes. And number two, he seems kind of pompous. So, this being said, a lot of things in this world, people like that I don't. So, I just figured me thinking Chris Brogan was kind of a blowhard, pompous guy was just my experience. Until I watched the Eric Worre documentary a couple of weeks ago. I will link the reaction video to The Rise of the Entrepreneur, which is an Eric Worre self-funded documentary in the cards here. And yeah, it's as bad as you would think. But anyway, he had a bunch of sort of business and marketing thought leaders. And Chris Brogan was one of them. And I was like, oh, right, that guy. I totally remember that guy. So to give you and to give myself a little bit of background, Chris Brogan kind of peaked in popularity sort of 2010, 2012-ish. He wrote a book called Trust Agents in 2009 that got on the New York Times bestseller list. He's written 3 other books since that have not, but hey, get one, that's pretty great. And his blog, chrisbrogan.com, was one of the top 5 marketing blogs back in 2012 or something. So this is the time period where Chris Brogan is sort of a thought leader. And then since then, so over the last 10 years, he's kind of, he's written for Entrepreneur Magazine. He's been on the board of advisors for HubSpot. And in the Eric Worre documentary, which was filmed at an unknown time at recording, but I'll put on the screen now, the year, Chris Brogan basically says that he feels sorry for people who work regular jobs and don't have businesses. And if he tells someone they're a good employee, it is no kindness. It means he thinks they have given up. So color me surprised when I look up and find that Chris Brogan has a real job now. Here's the thing. There's a reason that I don't make proclamations about how other people live their lives on this channel. Number one, I think it would make me kind of an asshole. Number two, it would make me a hypocrite because, for example, the business thing that, oh, you shouldn't have a job, you should have a business. I always had another job with this business up until like 3 or 4 years ago when this business became full-time. But I always had something else, some other income stream or streams going for like the first 10 years of my business. So I'm not going to make some disparaging comment about other people who have to do that too. So yeah, also the third reason is never say never, right? Because this could all go poof at any moment, in which case I'd get a real job and just keep living my life, because sometimes that's how it goes. So Chris Brogan in that documentary, I thought was pretty insufferable. And that kind of confirmed my initial feelings about him 10 years ago. It's hard because I can be kind of judgmental when I meet somebody. I like want to just get right to their essence right away. And what's really hard is I don't want to be like that, but I'm also right like 95% of the time. So anyway, it made me curious about Chris Brogan talking about marketing. And so I wanted to revisit Chris Brogan as the 2022 version of myself. So, 15-year marketing veteran versus a 4 or 5 year marketing, practitioner a few years ago. And I thought, let's find something that he's recorded pretty recently. So today's video is on the Duct Tape Marketing channel. And if you don't remember Duct Tape Marketing, it was a sort of book and a blog, again, around the same time period as the Chris Brogan era of the 2010s. I feel like it's not super popular anymore. But anyway, about a year ago, apparently, the Duct Tape Marketing guy interviews Chris Brogan and produces this video, which is about 21 minutes long. And it says, "Trends You Can't Ignore," featuring Chris Brogan. So what's cool is, since it was filmed a year ago, we'll be able to tell, like, are these real trends or not? So we can see, like, is Chris Brogan a thought leader? Could he have predicted the future? Which is where we're at here in 2022, about a year to a year and a half after this was filmed. So without further ado, let's hear from Chris Brogan.
All right, welcome to another episode of Trends You Cannot Ignore. Our guest today is Chris Brogan, somebody I like to call a friend. I've known Chris for a long time. He's also the president of Chris Brogan Media, where he offers brands digital content strategy as well as business strategy. He's a sought-after keynote speaker like all of us used to be. And he's also the showrunner of a show I've been on called The Backpack Show. He's a New York Times best-selling author of about 9 books now or so, including a new one he is working on his 10th called The Backpack. Maybe we can get him to give us a little treat on that. So, Chris.
It's funny because during the Eric Warhe talk, he used the analogy of, when I see someone who has a job instead of a business, it's like a little kid, who's lost, and you run into them in the woods and you say, "Oh, let me take your backpack, little guy. Don't worry, we'll get you back to your camp." He had some condescending example like that. So I'm just going to look up real quick and see if Chris Brogan Media still exists. It seems like he's still chrisbrogan.com, and his 3 roles that he lists are chief of staff at AppFire, keynote speaker, and strategic advisor for companies who are looking to acquire, heading toward an IPO, etc. Now, what I think is interesting is him advising big companies is that in the Eric Warhe documentary, he talks about how he bought a company and it seemed like he overpaid and just bought an email list. So he bought a company that apparently he didn't entirely understand. So him advising companies seems like interesting to me. And I don't know if he's ever created a big company or worked for a big company. I can't really get that information from his Wikipedia. So I think that's interesting.
Thanks for joining us.
John, anytime I could be in your presence, I'm so happy. I'm happy you have all these other people, but you and I could do this over an ice cream. I'd be just as cheery.
Yeah, I miss that we can't get together for like lunches at really terrible diners or something like that, in cities, here and there.
This is recorded in June of 2021, so in the middle of the pandemic still. I think that's what they're alluding to here.
So this is mostly about trends, and gosh, last year was quite a trend year. So what's the biggest takeaway for you from 2020? Like, what came out of that for you?
So 2020.
Okay, and one more thing before they get into it. I think it's funny that the way they're framed is kind of interesting. So they both have bookcases to one side, and Chris Brogan's bookcase has his little hashtag Chris Brogan and some, I guess, stuffed animals and stuff on it. And then it looks like, I think his name is John Janesh. He's the Duct Tape Marketing guy. He's got probably copies of his books behind him. So I think it's just kind of funny that they both kind of have a bookcase to one side. And the way that this is cropped is kind of like, it's not like their faces aren't centered in it. They're both kind of a little to one side. But anyway, all right, I'm going to let Chris talk about 2020 now.
Besides being horrendous for like everybody I know, there's so few people that came out the other side going, "Man, I kicked it." But 2020 was the year of "I told you so," and nobody wanted to say it out loud. It was, for how many years have we said you got to digitize? You've got to at least have a basic website set up. You've got to have some small amount of your web functionality ready to go in case something, you need a customer who's not across.
I really, even when I'm right, I don't say I told you so because I don't think it's a particularly helpful thing to say to somebody. Usually, like, they either remember you saying that or they feel so overwhelmed with the thing that they have to do or the new pivot that they have to make that I just think saying I told you so is just kind of mean and condescending and is unnecessary. But we'll see.
Across the counter from you.
Yeah.
And you and I both love small business, love mom and pops, and everywhere I went, I ran into a lot of I was brought into this project up in Canada, and it was massive how much of like Main Street was not digitized in any way. So sub shops, they call them donaire shops up there, nail places, pawn.
Okay, so I need to set the record straight on Donairs. I am of French Canadian descent. Donair is a kind of sauce, okay? And it's kind of sweet and garlicky. So I just looked it up because I'm like, what is even in Donair sauce? Because I've only ever ordered it as like a dipping sauce for my cheesy breadsticks, or I think you can like get it put on like a sandwich or something. It's made of evaporated milk, white vinegar, garlic powder, sugar, and salt. So it's like sweet but garlicky. And essentially you stir them together, you allow them to curdle, and then it kind of is this goopy sauce. It's better than I'm making it sound, but yeah, not all sandwiches are Donairs in Canada. Donair is a just specific kind of sauce that you can put on a sandwich or that you can use as a dipping sauce for things like garlic bread. So let's continue.
Shops, anything you could imagine on the street had no digital presence, hardly at all, or like a 1990s circa website. And so the biggest change, I think, is that not only do we have to learn how to operate remotely and all that, we really had to commit to kind of digitizing how we operate, no matter what size business. Even a company of one, you had to get a little bit better than that little cardboard, a business card at the grocery store.
Well, no question. I mean,
the guy's like, really? That's like your thing, is that a lot of small businesses don't have web presences and they had to get them some during the pandemic? Like, okay, that's kind of, I don't know. That was my read on his reaction.
But here's here's the money question in that then. Like, a lot of the new thing was touchless contact.
Yeah.
You can get quotes now with this. You can pick up your product now without touching. You can do a full order. I mean, is touchless going to stay, you think?
Why wouldn't it?
I'm trying to think of reasons why I'd want it back.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a few, like if I was going to buy a bicycle, I might like have someone put it together for me, because that is not a skill I possess and I have no patience. So I would totally mess up the drive chain, for instance. So, I mean, there's some spots where that's important. Haircuts, we need to have someone there with their fingers running through our loving locks so they can get a few pieces off of it. But, there's a lot of businesses where, like, I'll give you an example right in my little town. I have a little place. It's a cantina, which up in northern Massachusetts is funny because it's like really delicious Mexican flavoring foods and barbecue-y stuff, but it's like the whitest white guy in the world. But I have to walk in the store, wait for him to make it. And I could get it to go, but even then it's still kind of a delay. And I get that sort of feeling of like, why aren't you ready and configured to if not have your own delivery guy or whatever? Because I would spend more money with him. That's the thing.
Well, but during the pandemic, a lot of businesses were losing money. And so that's what was hard, is like they had to make these big infrastructure changes, but they didn't have the revenue coming in to do it. So even though they probably knew deep down they'd make more money, it's really hard to justify, okay, I'm going to hire even a part-time delivery driver at, 10 or 15 bucks an hour, minimum wage. That's still a pretty big commitment for a small business that hasn't had regular revenue coming in during a pandemic. So it's not that I think people didn't want to do it. It's just that they were trying to sort of survive and spend as little money as possible.
It's not so much that it's like the worst thing in the world to go in and sit down. Who doesn't like to go and sit in a nice restaurant? And he's a great business owner. Love to talk to the man. But you know what, John? If I feel like I just want to grab a little something and I'm working, like you and I are having this call, I haven't eaten. And as I'm talking food, that may be why I'm talking food. I wish I could have a little window open while we're talking and I can make the order and hit go. And some really nice person is going to come to my door with it. And that's not going to happen. So that means he loses all my money.
Yeah.
And maybe some bigger commercial organization or the little pizza and sub shop that I've, you can only eat so many salads when it's iceberg lettuce and 4 crappy tomatoes. You know what I mean? Like there's just an options challenge there in my small town.
So to me, there's like a big difference between having something, being able to order it online and just having a little spot that you just like swing by and pick it up, and having something delivered. I did a broadcast with some Gen Z folks, and we had I am sort of on the millennial Gen X cusp, and then we had some boomers on the broadcast, and we went through a bunch of stuff, and kind of what we all agreed on, across the generations was we would rather pick something up than have it delivered. So we wanted the convenience of ordering online, but we didn't want to have to maybe go through the whole store looking for the item, and waiting for it and all that. We wanted to just pay for it and then have a spot to pick it up versus having someone bring it to our house. Now, exception with that might be like I ordered a freezer and I have a small car. So like that got delivered and I appreciated that. But you know what I mean? So I don't think the delivery part is as important as having a way to do the transaction and then a seamless way for me to just pick it up without having to like wait in line or whatever. There's just like a designated spot, or there's like, a little, I think some of the bigger stores have like almost like lockers, for lack of a better word. So it's like, oh, go to locker number 3 or something and your stuff's there. But, however a business wants to do it, just saving that time going and finding the item, waiting in line to pay for it, paying for it, or waiting for it to get made, I think is more of what people were looking for and less of the delivery. Maybe it's because I'm a woman who's lived by herself for a while and I just don't want some weird dude knowing my address. But so I think the delivery is less important here than Chris is making out.
Touchless and contactless. I think delivery at the curb. I think, what's it, BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store.
Yeah.
I think all of these trends in B2C and B2B are going to be super important. Now you still need your HVAC guy to come and change filters for you. There's still lots of on-premise business that's going to happen, but there's not necessarily as much on-premise work resolution. And by the way, one last little detail in this, and I'll take a breath and let you ask another question or two. Here's another one.
They act like they're really good friends, but like this guy doesn't seem super impressed with Chris Brogan.
So I live in northern Massachusetts. The area power company.
We get that you live in northern Massachusetts. You've mentioned it twice in 5 minutes.
Said, hey, your bill's kind of overdue. You got to pay it with this digital payment thing. I'm like, well, that makes sense to me. I always forget to pay my power bill. And so I click on it and I get through it, and it's like, you owe like a lot of money. I was like, oh, I guess I haven't paid for a while. I clicked on the thing and it says to me, well, you can't pay more than $600 through this process. And I'm like, what? Like, why put this barrier here? Like, who's benefiting from that barrier?
When you're a small company and you're taking online payments, the transaction fees can be a lot. I once had a client who owed me $9,000 and I forgot to not check off the credit card payment. And they paid me with a credit card, and I paid like $300 in processing fees for that payment. So it could be as simple as that.
In this world. So I was grumpy about that. And so I'm just ending with that to say that
just pay it in $600 and then pay another $600, or don't let your bill get up past $600. It's a small business.
Power company, big power energy company,
big power,
couldn't do it. So don't feel bad if you're not ready yet.
Yeah, I think sometimes the bigger ones are worse. So one of the things that's a real inhibitor of innovation is people don't like change. And so a lot of times, even if they look at something going, well, that would be good for us, but I don't know. That's hard. But I think that's gone out the window. I mean, I think everybody had to innovate. Everybody had to, be open to change. And so my contention is that if you have some innovation that you're sitting on, now's the time to bring it to the world. And so if you agree with that in any way, shape, or form, what's for you in 2021 the big thing? What do you think the big opportunity out there for 2021 is?
So for different businesses, I might have a different answer.
Sure.
So let's sift that just a
All right, I've got one answer. Telling your business's story in short format video content. That would be what I said. And I think that would work for a B2B business. I think it would work for a B2C business. I think it would work for a service business or a product business. Getting to know the company, or getting to know the owner, getting to know the products, getting to know, the benefits, all through kind of bite-sized video content would, and doing that in 2021, heck, doing it in 2022, I think is a real game changer. But let's see what Chris says.
tiny
Sift
bit,
away.
because you're the best. Business to consumer. I think you really need to shore up your digital payment options. I think you need to, if you don't have Stripe running, get Stripe running. It's free. Get it running just to say you have one.
Right.
And if you don't know what it is, go look at it. Go watch a YouTube video.
You can just tell people what it is. Stripe is an online payment processor. It's like Authorize.net or like Braintree Payments or whatever. It's something that interfaces between a customer's credit card and whatever like website that they might be using. So someone can make a credit card payment through a website if you hook it in with Stripe.
What is Stripe? You'll be done. Get Venmo. Why? I don't know. But because if you're a roofer and the guy who you're doing the roof work for says, can I pay you in Venmo? You say, yes, you can. Right?
Yeah, you can get Venmo. I think they charge you fees now to like transfer the money and stuff. So it's kind of a pain in the butt. We have it as a backup form of payment, but I definitely have used it probably a handful of times with customers. Like I said, literally like 5 or less, which I mean by a handful. So yeah, taking payment as many ways as possible. Hell, taking PayPal. So for example, for my company, we take PayPal, we take credit cards, we take bank transfers, and we take Venmo. So if somebody can pay with one of those 4 things, great. Or a check. We also take checks, especially for big amounts so that we don't have to pay transaction fees.
Right. Reduce friction.
Yep.
Like cash money is not the magic system it used to be. And crypto is not yet the next big thing.
Yeah.
If one weird guy who's on Saturday Night Live can make a joke and sink a currency, it's not a currency yet.
Yeah.
But don't, for gosh sakes, don't be that person that's thinking like that's way 20 years from now. It's now. So Stripe and Venmo, I'll say that for B2C people.
And I will say, it's not like it takes a big percentage. Stripe takes 2.9% plus 30 cents a transaction. So for example, I have a co-working space virtual membership, and that's $19 a month. So when I get the payment, I get $18.15 into my bank account. So it takes 19%, 2.9% of that plus 30 cents subtracted from that total equals $18.15. So that in Venmo, I forget what their fees are for transferring to a bank account. I'll put them on the screen when I'm editing this video. But there's always kind of a cost for this sort of convenient payment option that isn't cash. And as a business, we, rather than saying, oh, I don't want to pay 3%, we have to absorb it. Like I said, it's a little bit more painful when it's like $9,000, but, still.
People, I'll say get your payment options in order, because one of the most important fast action things. I just got an email saying, here's how you submit a credit card form. Like, what are we doing? I took one of my kids to physical therapy. I had to fill out 9 pieces of physical paper.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what are we doing here too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the medical system, I haven't been to a doctor's appointment where I haven't had to fill out 2 pieces of paperwork or more.
Welcome, touchless society. I'm going to write on a
and 4 of the pieces of paper had the same information on
same info. I had to put it on a bunch of times, and I'm just like, none of this has to happen.
Yeah,
none of this has to exist.
Yeah.
So there's that. So then in B2B, get a little bit trickier still. Is there any part of the chain where you can do something that improves your velocity over some competitor.
So with like B2B, so if it's like services business for the most part, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of B2B companies are service businesses. So maybe it's the ability to book a consultation or book a service online. You can look at the person's calendar and schedule a time that they can come, replace your HVAC filter, for example. That saves a lot of back and forth over email and text. And what you can do with the booking software is you can say, okay, when someone books an appointment, book off half an hour on either side of that, which would give me time to drive to the next appointment. You know, if the person selects that they live in a 2-story house, make the appointment have to be 2 hours or longer versus a 1-story house, because that will take longer because there's more filters in a 2-story house, whatever. Point being is you can also have some conditional logic in there too. So maybe he'll suggest that.
Is there something, can you do something as simple as use your dumb like Microsoft Calendar or your Google Calendar or whatever to remind your buyer of something ahead of it so that you can send out a good old fashioned manual email? Now, by the way, there's computers.
This guy interviewing him looks so bored. He's like,
systems you could buy that do this all for you and you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But even if I said an Excel spreadsheet and
I noticed that Chris Brogan's audio is a little bit delayed. So I know I've said this in videos before. If you're going to be recording a video interview or if you are giving a class or something, get a corded internet connection. So if you have a Mac like I do, you can get a little dongle that will connect to an Ethernet cable, which connects directly in, and it is so much faster. I'm plugged in right now, which is why when you watch my videos, there's like no delays, right? Between, because I'm obviously on the internet because I'm streaming this video and talking about it. But yeah, if you're going to be on, especially on, a podcast or something of national level or something, get a corded internet connection. It's worth it. And if you're not sure, like I keep 150 feet of Ethernet in my car, not because I want to murder anyone, but because 150 feet will get me from wherever the internet connection is. If it's across the room, if it's in a basement. When I go to my mom's house, I started doing this. The internet connection is in her bedroom. And so I snake my little Ethernet cable. I snake it up the stairs and across a room and into the office that I work out of so that when I do video stuff, I have an uninterrupted connection. So I think we might hear his sound glitch out a couple of times. And so that's why his voice and the way his lips are moving are not quite matching up.
In a calendar, could you do something where you told your guy, it's about time you're going to need to do X? Because guess what? My dentist knows how to do that. My oil change guy knows how to do that. And the fact that we're not helping our customers transform their workplace by saying, we're ready for you. How do you beat the Amazon, right?
Nobody is expecting a small business to be Amazon, least of all someone like me. Also this guy, the interview guy, has like no camera presence at all. Like, sit up, look at the camera. This isn't a long interview. I would understand if it was like a 3-hour interview and you were kind of getting a little tired toward the end, a little slumpy, but come on. But yeah, you don't need to be Amazon. Customers just want a little bit of convenience, like, the ability to schedule a time or having a price list online so that I generally know if I'm calling you to, I don't know, rid my house of bed bugs or something, that I generally know how much it's going to cost when I contact you. Or, those are just a couple of examples, but you don't need to be Amazon.
How do you beat Amazon in a lot of different fields? And how do you beat the Amazon in your B2B world? You do it by having the most personable, most interactive one-to-one connection. So in the first one, I gave real specific technologies. In the second one, I'm not. But in both cases, these are not heavy lifts. I'm not asking you to sell one of your kids. I'm saying, can you go and
Yeah, I'm only asking how you can be Amazon. That's not heavy lifting at all.
Just that much more software. And then you're going to have a lot more happy customers.
So one of the things that I've, for years written about is because I'm a big fan of all the technology, and particularly as not just for technology's sake, but part of what happens, you explained the Amazon. I mean, Amazon trained everybody to what an experience could be like. And so like it or not, people get used to that. And they're like, well, I'm not putting in my credit card. I did that once. Why do I have to do it
Right.
again? Right. And so that behavior, of course, we have to, I think we have to adhere to. But at what point do we lose the human touch? Because we can automate, so we can make it so we never have to actually meet a customer. But at what point do we lose sort of the brand promise or the connection because of using too much software?
I think when we tell the story, we have a unique human voice. And I think our customer service handles, maybe there's some FAQs or some general how-to docs, but we give people a way to talk to a real person. I think that's how we do it.
It's always in how we use the software.
Right.
It's always in how we use the software. And I'll give you an example. You can go to a grocery store, a mid-sized grocery store. I have a mom and pop right by my house. I'll go nowhere else. It's amazing. You can pay by debit card.
I was on vacation last week in the small town in Idaho, or a couple weeks ago in the small town in Idaho, and I found this tiny grocery. And the woman walked in and said, "Oh, you have produce this week." I thought, now that's a small town grocery.
That's the way it should be. I mean, I always say to people, that's when you buy things like Truvia, you have to get it through Amazon because your place has sugar and brown sugar.
Yeah.
But the mid-sized grocery stores, they have those self-service lines. Well, who complains about self-service lines is people want a human touch. Have you gone to the humans lately? No. So
Are we disparaging people who have to work retail jobs in the middle of a pandemic? Really?
I've given up on them for Lent, and I've decided I'd rather work with the robots. But what happens is,
see what I mean? Like, he knows about like sort of business processes, but he's such a condescending jerk about it.
If you get your best customer service person to manage that collection of self-service house, they make it hum and they make it great, and they fix your problem before you have the problem, or they say, "Let me help you. I know you're going to mess this up." And you're like, "Oh, thank you for helping me." Right? There's nothing better. So every technology is that way.
Yeah.
You can have an automated thing that says you're out of office because you're on vacation. And you know what everyone's going to think when they get that back? I hate you. I hate you. I don't care that you're out of office. I was just asking you a quick question. So
I just had an out of office vacation responder because I took like my first vacation in like 5 years last week that I'm filming this. And I mean, I warned my clients I was going to be gone, but some of them forgot about it. So I had it only sending to my contacts. So a couple of them emailed me and then they wrote right back and they're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you were on vacation. Like, don't worry about this till you get back." So I don't think I'm sorry that you're so bitter that people have vacation responders, Chris Brogan.
If you can make it more fun, that's on you, not the tech. If you go to voicemail and your voicemail sounds like everyone's voicemail, another missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
The same guy in town I was telling you about who sells the food and that doesn't have the delivery, his phone number even is Love Taco. And it's area code Love Taco, LUV Taco, and he even picked a phone number that lets him be personable. And so I think that you don't lose a human touch because you buy tech. You lose a human touch when you rely on the tech to act on your behalf. When I've gotten
well, all tech acts on your behalf. I think what he means is you lose it when the tech makes it abundantly clear that they don't want you to talk to a person. So, it's one thing if, an automated chat bot tries to answer my question, but after 2 or 3 attempts, like, I just want to be redirected to a customer service person if it's not answering my question. So I think if the tech makes it abundantly clear that you will never talk to someone and they don't want you to talk to someone, I think that's when it feels gross.
Email. Now I can blast email to everyone. That's
right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I've long said that, we need to use technology to create a better experience for whoever's using it or to enhance.
Also, like, none of these guys are looking at the camera. So, like, I know for me, it's a little bit weird, right? I'm sitting alone in a room. Well, technically my dog's here now staring at me, but I'm looking at the camera as I talk to you, even though I'm small, because like it makes for a better connection. But none of these guys have looked at their camera even once. I'll keep seeing if they do it as the video goes on. But notice how like they're not doing that. And we're over a year into a pandemic at this point, and they've been clearly broadcasting. Like, Chris Brogan has a broadcast microphone. He's got a better microphone than I do, and he's not looking at his camera.
Enhance the experience as opposed to replace the experience. And I think that's, another way of saying what you just said, because there are a lot of tools. My eyeglass place I get contacts, I want to be able to make the appointment online. I don't want to call them. I just wanted that, and I wanted to send a reminder. That to me enhances the experience that I'm having. Then I go and I see the doctor, and he does his thing.
Right.
And that, I think, is a great example of, we've got to have that kind of technology to make it easier for people, but not replace the experience. I want to move to something you've been doing for quite some time, and I've always been intrigued with it. I'm a lurker, behind the scenes. I've probably never commented on it. And that's your 3 words project. What have you been doing? 10 years, maybe, or so? And
since 06.
06, more than 10 years. So the basic idea behind this is every year you sit down and pick 3 words that are going to be kind of your meaningful words for the year. And I won't steal your thunder, but if you want to add anything to what you do, why you do that.
I think hold on. So I first heard of this practice through Danielle Laporte. She has these core desire feelings, and you're supposed to pick one. And I actually pick one every year, and I have for like the last 5 years. So the 3 words thing I think is interesting, but it is not, I don't think, unique to Chris Brogan.
What it's meant, and then maybe riff on your 3 words.
Yeah. So I don't know why I thought about doing it. I don't know what made me think about it. I was thinking, probably like everyone does, about New Year's resolutions. And I was like, these have never worked for me. Yeah. And then I'd read this.
Oh my God, they're both so like camera presence. Listen, I get that I'm not like in a beautiful studio right now or something, but I try to at least have presence.
Article that said that by January 19th, you give up on your resolutions. And I thought, that's awful. And I thought, that's probably what I do. And so I came up with this idea that if I had 3 guiding words, that at least I could sort of triangulate a little. Now, this is sort of like people who do eyeball math, or people who have these sort of rules of thumb that they use, but with their cut thumb or something. They're not good. But my measurement was, if I had 3 words that I could use to triangulate, meaning each word has to mean something. It can't be like finish the book. The is a useless word. Right. So the words each have to have their kind of energy and weight. And so I come up with 3 words. So 2006 was ask, do, and share. Yeah. So I asked people questions a lot. Hey, how'd that thing work that you were doing? Can you show me a little bit about that?
My God, interview guy, look at the camera.
And then I'd learn about something, and I would share it with people through my blog at the time and through my newsletter and things. And people were like, man, this guy's got a lot of good information. He keeps just putting it right out there for me. I was asking, I was trying it out, and I was sharing. I had a great year, 2006. Other years, I picked a different 3 words kind of set up. And unfortunately, it always bit my butt. If I used a word that was too clever, it bit my butt. If I tried to, sometimes I do this thing where I mush a word together and it's totally not a real word. That one always fails. Why 3 words and not 2 words? I don't know. Why not 1 word? Everyone I say who has 1 word, I say, do you remember your word past March? And they always don't.
I do. It's on my desktop screensaver, and I put it a few other places too, but mainly there. I see it every day.
My 3 words for 2021 were showrunner, which was to remind myself that I'm going to treat everything like it's a show, and that it's my responsibility that the entire look, feel, energy, experience design, and everything like that about my projects would be wrapped up the way a show would be wrapped up. It would be, I know what's going to happen. I need these sets to look like this. I need these caterers to come, because if they don't come, then everybody gets mad. You know what I mean? All the operational and creative in one thing, showrunner. The other one I had was options, which is to keep reminding myself that leadership is options management. And what I mean is, leadership is looking at, you've got too many options in front of a team, and you go, oh my gosh, guys, we only have to worry about 3 things right here. You delete all those options. You go, here you go, there's the options. Or the team says to me, boss, I'm stuck. I don't know what's going on here. Let me give you a couple options to find your way out of this. Is that going to work okay for you? I'll give you 2. And they go, oh, this is great. Thanks for giving us these options. So options. The third was monk, which is so simple. I want to live a little more like a monk. I want to throw even more things out. I sold my car. You know what? When you get rid of a car and you like suddenly have to look at the world that way, you go, huh, well, that's interesting. I didn't realize how much I was getting in it for about nothing, just to go drive around. And I thought, it's a 2010 Camaro. like it's a 426 horsepower engine. How am I doing for the environment with this beast? And I didn't want to replace it with a Prius. I replaced it with a nothing. And, I borrow a car every now and again when I need one. And that was Monk.
Do a little extra walking.
Yeah, I do a little extra walking. Still could use some even more, but it's a biggie.
So I'm going to invite you guys, if you have a question or just, again, don't be.
Okay, I see. This is a live video, and he's looking at the questions. I was wondering why I kept looking to the side.
Shy. If you just want to say hi to Chris because you've been a long time fan or follower, I'm going to.
Or refute me. Argue me. I'll fight you.
I like that. And but I'm going to ask you one more question while
Really, Chris?
you're getting your questions queued up. And if those of you that are too shy, you just want to put it in chat, I'll ask Chris for you. But here's my last question. Hey, Bobby. My last question for you, Chris, is tell us a little bit about the backpack, the book.
Backpack the book.
I like how this guy just joined with absolutely no introduction.
So it came from sort of the same reason I named the show The Backpack Show, was that 2020 showed us one thing for sure, was that, shifting sands, right? Like everything's crazy. There's no foundation. You can't build if the sands are shifting, right? Like you can't build a house if it might actually start tilting towards Sawyer there. So you gotta just think, well, I guess I gotta be a little more mobile. So a backpack is an analogy for a smallish thing that you can put some of what you need in it, and you're gonna have to try to succeed with that. And what it reminds us of, kind of symbolically, is can't take everything. Everything can't be the priority. You could shift it out if you want. You can bring back to your home base and put new things in the backpack as missions change. But it reminds us to kind of lock down. And it also means that everyone's backpack's different. It's so fun to me to go to a conference and say, what's in your bag? I would love to look at people's bags. Chris Penn's bag is amazing. It's full of weapons and armament and stuff like that. Other people, it could be like 5 batteries. They have, yes, right. Some people have the mics, the clickers.
You just hear how his sound kind of like reset a little. And I also like looking at other people's bags. I forget which magazine, is it People or Us Weekly or something? They're like a celebrity and what's in their bag, and clearly it's a bunch of like sponsored products or whatever, but I would genuinely be curious in what's in anyone's bag as well.
Like a drug full of batteries.
Yeah.
And in mine, you might even find comic books or something, because I'm not a full grown up. So the thing about that part of it is that we have to bring us to the situation as well. So if the book actually, leaves my typewriter and comes to your desk, that's what the premise is. And the other is just to remind people that we're all a little bit dented as well. We all have our scars and our bumps and our whatever, and we can still run though. We're still fine. We don't have to be flawless.
Yeah, I like the idea too, because when anybody who's done any real backpacking, I mean, you're down to the point where you're like, this is not essential. This weighs 4 ounces. I'm not taking it, and so I think it's really the idea of really stripping it down too.
You're spot on, because I was a Boy Scout, and the first time we climbed, the biggest mountain we ever climbed was Katahdin, which is exactly a mile, but it's like 6 feet shy of a mile. So they put a 6 feet pile of rocks on the top. And it was exactly a mile. And boy, oh boy, I carried the kitchen sink, and everybody started looking at my pack. What did you bring this for? I looked like I was going to get stranded out there for a year.
This espresso maker did not need to come with you.
In class, I remember in 2nd grade, there was a book called Lost on a Mountain in Maine by Don Fenler. And it's about basically a young boy who gets separated from his scout troop on Mount Katahdin, and he has to survive for like 9 days before they find him. And it was super scary. And I remember thinking that all hiking was like that. So I guess if Chris Brogan read that book, I can understand why he tried to bring everything with him, because he probably thought, what if I get left in the woods by my Cub Scout troop like Don Fenler did, and now suddenly I'm like fighting for my life and they have to cut off some of my toes due to frostbite and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, like the toes thing, I remember, because I remember thinking he was going to come to our school, and I was so worried that he was going to like be wearing sandals and I'd have to see like where his toes got cut off. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't hike until I was 16. And the first hike I went on was this hike he's talking about. It's a pretty intense hike, but maybe Chris Brogan got that book read to him too.
Exactly. And they're like, you're a dork. And I felt like a dork carrying that up and down that hill. And the next time I traveled, I was too lightweight. So, you got to learn.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like you said, it's a biggie.
All right, Bobby, you can unmute there and ask Chris your question, and a couple of you get queued up. Whoever wants to go next, raise your hand or just jump in. All right, go, Bobby. You forgot to mute, Bobby. Do I need the T-shirt that says you're muted? You're muted. There you are.
Okay, can you read lips?
I can pretend.
No, I don't really have a question for you. Actually, I probably have a whole page of questions, but I can save that for later. I just wanted to say hi and tell you I've been following you since like 2008.
Wow.
2009, pre-beard,
Mhm.
9 books, all of that. Yeah. From not your beginnings, but pretty much, yeah.
When
And
people
anyway,
started
good
to
to-
see me around, I guess.
And it just ends. Okay. He was slightly insufferable, but not too bad. But we also didn't learn a lot either from that long conversation. I picked out 4 things. Number 1, pick 3 words that are going to theme your year. Each word has to carry its weight. So it's something you can kind of keep in mind as you're making decisions, as you're setting goals and things like that. And it's better than a New Year's resolution because it's easier to remember. Number 2, if you're a business, take multiple forms of payment. Ideally, take Venmo, have some kind of online processor that can take a credit card payment. Maybe you want to do Amazon payments. Maybe you want to do PayPal. But the more different ways to take payment, the better and easier it is for your customers. And speaking of that, if you're more of a B2B or services type company, just think of ways that you can make life easy for your customer, whether it's letting them book an online appointment, whether it automatically sends them reminders, even if something, can be picked up, so they can order it ahead of time and pick it up. That's all appreciated. And this is the one little nugget that I actually appreciated, which I never really thought of, but leadership is option management. So as a good leader, I should be cutting down options, or I should be helping, people I work with prioritize tasks and that kind of thing. And to me, that makes sense. So I actually like that, Chris Brogan. So he's not bad, but I don't know. I'm never going to be his biggest fan or anything. Maybe, all the stuff that's happened during the pandemic has made him kind of realize that, oh yeah, maybe, life isn't as cut and dry as I thought. Maybe people do need to just get jobs, or maybe it's okay if a small business can't afford a brand new website in the middle of a pandemic. I will say I'm a little less impressed with the guy interviewing him. He kept touching his face and moving around. I finally figured out he was looking at his second monitor for questions. But I don't know. I'm not saying you need to have camera presence, and I'm not saying I'm like a movie star or anything, but eye contact and looking like you want to be there, I think can go a long way, especially if you have, I don't know, a video type show that you're putting on the internet. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you like this sort of video, I hope you consider subscribing to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize. If you want to see past episodes of Nicole Reacts, you can go on the YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Nicole Reacts, and all the videos from the past are there. You can also go onto the blog and click the Nicole Reacts category, and you'll see all the past episodes there as well. And if you have somebody you want me to react to, a specific video, a person, a topic, leave it as a comment on this video, or if you're more shy, you can use the contact form of my website. That goes to me, and we'll add it to the list of things that we can do in the future. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you doing so. And yeah, there'll be another person next week, because these online marketing gurus, they're never going to stop coming. But good news is, get a friend in the marketing business. Take care.